Thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction, uh, Dr. Ravi Gopalakrishnan. Um, Good evening, everybody. The time here it's 7:30 in the evening. Malaysia is 2.5 hours ahead of India. Okay. At the outset, let me thank Swamiji and also the Vishnu Mohan Foundation for this invitation to speak. It is always a pleasure to be among thinkers and philosophers, and also religious personalities of India and also elsewhere. Yeah, I've been listening throughout yesterday as well as today, and the deliberations has been very insightful, thought-provoking, quite interesting. The two speakers before me, the advocate, um, uh, he was his speech was very interesting, brought us to the realm of international law and international relations, which is an area which I've been working on for the last 25 years. I teach international relations and security studies at my university in Malaysia. And so the last 25 years, I've been dealing with war and conflict and crisis all over the world. And of course, when we talk about conflict and crisis, the flip side of the coin is actually peace. So the idea of security studies is study about security, and the other part of security study is strategic studies, which is the study of what are the strategies to employ in order to bring from security to move from insecurity to security. So I think that is also the general theme of this conference, which is actually peace and reconciliation and confidence building. This is a topic which is very close to my heart, and I've been dealing with that topic for many years now. And my presentation today is essentially about a paper that myself and a few other of my colleagues in Malaysia have written in a journal called Sustainability. It's a Switzerland-based journal called Sustainability. And in that journal, in our journal article, we have introduced a concept of integrated education, which is the integration of bioethics principle into value-based education as a model or a framework for a peace education or a peace curriculum. So I'm here to speak a bit on that aspect of that paper today. I will share my slides, if I may.
Shyam, could you give him access to present?
Right. I'm unable to share. Let me try doing it again. Right. All right. Are you all able to see my slides?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let me just put it into screen. Okay. The topic of my presentation today is societal peace through the integration of bioethics principles and value-based education. What is bioethics principle? Bioethics is a division of the study of ethics and morality that takes into consideration few principles, such as the principle of autonomy, principle of justice, principle of beneficence, and also the principle of non-maleficence. So these are the four underlying foundational principles of bioethics, and we see bioethics being widely used in the field of biomedical sciences. But I think over the last several decades, the idea and the principles of bioethics have permeated into other forms of sciences, including the areas of new technology, emerging new technologies, and also to a certain extent into social sciences as well, especially in philosophy and also in the field of development studies. Then the second part is actually value-based education, This is another, this is not new for those know about education. This is the inculcation of values into the education system. Like in Malaysia, we have the inculcation of value in our school curriculum. But of course, the values are being taught separately in the form of a civic or moral education. I'm sure that the similar situation is also prevalent in many other countries. Let me move on to the next slide. Right, I'm going to start here by talking about societal chaos. I think the presenters yesterday and also today, established the concept of conflict and crisis, and also disparity in society. And from a philosophical religious angle, I think some speakers from yesterday's session spoke about the what do you call that, the feeling of anger as being the basis of conflict, of chaos, which is very true as well. Okay, so there is an element, a religious element, there is a psychological, attitudinal element to societal chaos, and also there is a sorry, there is also a structural as well as a socio-economic deprivation element to whenever we talk about chaos and also disparity in society. And this disparity essentially exacerbated or rather manifests itself through hatred, through conflicts, that divide individuals within community, within families. They can also divide individuals within societies and also countries. Countries are divided. Parts of countries are divided because of the hatred and conflict. And why? What is the reason for this social tension? Is basically because of incompatible goals. Number one, of achieving certain desired objective, which was clearly mentioned by our speaker, two speakers ago. And there is also another component when we talk about social tensions, is the idea of relative deprivation. The feeling of social tension happens when a group of people within a society or within a country feels they are being deprived, marginalized, or being oppressed for social, cultural, political, and sometimes due to identity. The inability to comprehend and reconcile identity within a particular society. We see that happening in Hong Kong at this point of time. The mainland Chinese, the identity of the mainland Chinese is essentially the identity to achieve global eminence, global power. But the identity of the Hong Kongers, all right, especially now, although they have merged, Hong Kong has become a special administrative zone of China. We see that the people in Hong Kong have distanced themselves from speaking Mandarin or embracing certain identity of the mainlands. So this is another issue that we have within the society or within a group of people who speak the same language or who have same ethno-religious background. Okay. So social tensions lead to social conflicts, all right? And especially when tensions are not mitigated well, they are not managed or they are not resolved, and there is an absence of conflict resolution methodologies or techniques or mechanism in place in order to resolve these conflicts. And that also exacerbate what we call negative beliefs and attitudes that manifest in the form of, again, hatred, intolerance, stereotype. Now we find that if you are from a particular region and therefore you should have this kind of tendencies. So stereotype, this is very one of the main reasons for ethnic conflicts around the world. Stigmatization and fear of the other. And it can also be historical memories. Like, for example, the Holocaust. The Holocaust is a historical memory of Jews wherever they are, right? And these historical memories can be used to garner group solidarity. Whenever there is a politician or there's a leader who wants to do it, they will play the the history card, they will play the religious card, they will play the linguistic card in order to get everybody together, all right, to a common cause. And this is very dangerous. We have seen this happening all over the world. And the argument I'm trying to present here is the present conflict resolution methodologies in a society. Of course, in a larger country or international system, we also have certain structures, all right, certain structures to mitigate conflict situation. But these structures are sometimes not so effective because at an international relation level, the primary actor is always the state, all right? So if India and Sri Lanka have some border issues, like for example, all right, and they can bring it to the ICJ, International Court of Justice, or they can go to some kind of maritime arbitration like ITLOS. But the decision to go to these arbitration bodies are solely dependent on the countries concerned, and nobody can force these countries to go to arbitration. The Kashmir issue is one important element that you see that the inability of states to use international systems in order to resolve their disputes. Malaysia and Singapore, we have dispute because we were part of Singapore was part of the Malay Kingdom at one time, and because of the separation, we found that there are some what do you call that, overlapping maritime issues that we face. But we decided to bring it to ICJ, and we lost. All right, but we had similar problems with Indonesia as well over some dotted islands in the Sulu Seas, and in that we won. Okay, so I think the systems in international relation is there, and because countries, by being modern states and members, they are supposed to take action, or they are supposed to embrace international norms, all right, by being member of international bodies. Like for example, if you have maritime issues, India have maritime issue. If India is a member of the UNCLOS, which is the UN Convention on the Laws of the Sea, then the laws of the sea dynamics and also the maritime what do you call that, elements and structures and the procedures will come into play to settle any disputes. But when you go to a societal level, when you go to an individual and societal level, which has religious, ethnic, and also socio-economic disparity coming together, the problems. We find it everywhere. In India, even in Malaysia now, identity politics is a big issue. So in this kind of situation, we find that the absence of a particular structure. We find some level of domination of the majority or the minority, and this exacerbates so much of problem. Okay, so why it happens at the societal level, all right, despite living together for centuries. Now, my next slide talks about what we call the peace curriculum in schools. Now, although all faith systems and school curriculum emphasize some degree of peaceful coexistence, love, compassion, the real world situation, but the real situation is indeed quite bad. It's indeed quite abysmal. All right. The conventional approach in managing social conflicts has been utilized by two approaches. One is what we call the material approach and the ideational approach. Now, I just want to introduce you the concept. The material approach says that social tensions and conflict occur when systemic expression of inequality among groups in society can negatively impact group dynamics. All right, this is quite common. All right, in any way that we can use examples from mainland India, we can use examples from most of the places when you have minorities living in the midst of a majority, and when the democratic system is not strong enough, we find that some level of oppression happens. Either it is the form of political oppression or political marginalization or socio-economic marginalization or religious marginalization or marginalization because of interpretation of history. All right. So therefore, you find that the inability of these small groups of people or the minority groups in order to integrate into what we call a nation building process, all right, into a nation building process. I have seen that in certain countries in Southeast Asia, the diaspora Indian community maintain very strongly their Indianness, all right, their Indianness compared, I mean, they are also integrating, but integrating to a lesser level. For them, having being of that faith, adorning the Indian attires, it's important. Speaking the language also important, but but English has has overtaken in many. My children have lost the language as well. All right, but we still go for Tamil movies or Hindi movies and watch, although we no, but I understand well. But the generation after me, probably the absorption rate because of the exposure is less. I think there is a tightening of identity of the mainland. Okay, especially in the use of language, the use of the education system. In terms of identity, the expression of identity. I think this is one of the main thing that we find that of the diaspora community elsewhere as well. And groups can also see economic marginalization. We call it socio-economic deprivation. The true sense of the problem is usually some economic element. If the economic element is not there, then the other element may not surface that well. I will give you an example of many countries, like, for example, I mean, I'm not sure whether you know where is Aceh. Aceh is actually a province in Indonesia, in the island of Sumatra. All right. So if you can imagine the Southeast Asia, Sumatra, the topmost of the island, and that is where the epicenter of the tsunami, the Asian tsunami started. We find that the people there, they are also Indonesian people, but they are Acehnese, and they feel that they are more Muslims than the rest of Indonesia. So therefore, they do not want the domination of Jakarta. All right, because Jakarta is controlled by an ethnic group of called the Javanese, right? People from Java. They are very influential. So they do not want the control of the Javanese people. So therefore, they request or they fought for very long for what we call an autonomous region. All right, and now they have the autonomous region. So where the Islamic law is practiced in that region. Okay, so you have within a polity. All right, despite the fact that you speak the same language or have similar ethno-linguistic or what we call primordial features, all right, that means you have blood relation, but yet you can be different as well. That is the okay. The second point, the conventional approach. Right? That is a material approach. The ideational approach is basically about the idea of oppression. All right, claims that the civic or moral education and religious inculcation through formal and informal mechanism may offer remedies for managing social tensions. And this is the whole idea. They say that if you have religious education, then therefore it can remedy the situation. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world, even in India, not in Malaysia. All right, some or other there's some problem in the inculcating of the religious the approach, why it is not happening, why people are still angry at each other, why people want to kill each other, or um, are able to mitigate so much of hatred towards one another. This is another story, another area of research that we need to look at. Now, what are the arguments from this paper? It's basically, we argue in this paper that both approaches have been less effective in providing a credible platform for peace and harmony enhancement in society. All right. In response, what the paper proposes is what we call an integration of the bioethics and also value-based education principle into the education curricula. I will just explain to you what these two elements are. The question that we ask is, can the naturalistic and altruistic logic of bioethics enhance divine and human-centered values in enabling social cohesion? All right, one, you have social chaos. All right, what is desired is actually social cohesion. It may not be integration or assimilation, but also to the ability to just live together, embrace peace. That is the first step, and to me, that in any societies that is enough. All right, you go beyond that, then it sometimes becomes problematic. Now, what is the proposition that we are telling? Is actually by integrating the 4 principles of bioethics, which is autonomy, non-maleficent, beneficent, and justice, into the value-based education system, learners are able to internalize the value. So what bioethics does, it helps to internalize the values of social cohesion, the idea of tolerance and acceptance, all right, and the idea of living together, all right, existing together, all right, and also reflects on these values as their learning experience. The value-based education is to make learners aware that the world consists of a community of independent nations, all right. India is a nation state, but India consists of many independent nations, all right, which is actually demarcated, what do you call that, using linguistic lines, like for example, all right. Malaysia is a nation state of 3 major nations, which is the Indian nation, the Chinese nation, and the Malay nation. So I think this is the realization, right? Although we go for nationality or nationalism or patriotism, but the identification or the recognition of belonging to a nation is very important. The identity is important. And when we say that you want to merge together, you forget your identity, you become merged to identity of a majority, doesn't work. Probably in the case of Indonesia, but that also it doesn't work 100%. All right, where Chinese change their names and they lose their mother tongue. They embrace universal Indonesian names. Like the famous badminton player Rudy Hartono, who played against Prakash Padukone, if I'm not mistaken. He's a Chinese, all right, but he has this name, a national Indonesian name. All right, so so it's an independent country, and the survival and well-being of the human race depends on what we call a mutual cooperation. Now, the bioethics principle amplify the expression of values promoted in value-based education. And this in turn motivates the learners to change the social conflict behavior into social cohesion. But of course, this is something which is what is desirable, all right, if it happens. Now, social cohesion enables individuals and groups to develop social bonds and societal peace ownership. That means this is very important, that you take ownership of the relations between groups and also between ethnicities in a society. And therefore, whatever decisions and actions that you undertake, you must also consider the ramification of those to the group cohesion. Okay. The next, what is bioethics? I mentioned a bit earlier. It's an interdisciplinary study of ethical, legal, social issues arising from life sciences and healthcare. I mentioned also to you the 4 principles of bioethics. So bioethics can provide naturalistic as well as an altruistic moral reasoning. Okay, this is the key word whenever we talk about values and ethics. It's the concept of moral reasoning, the ability to reason based on certain value sets, which we call morality. Now, there are also what do you call that, communal set morality, which is actually designed by living in societies. It can be a prescribed morality by way of a faith system or a religion. Can also be in terms of norms, all right? In terms of norms of international systems, like for example, all right? Why democracy and human rights is important, embraced by all countries, is because the United Nations, through their multilateral system, have actually promoted the concept of the right to protect, democracy, human rights, and things of that sort. All right. So you need to teach. There are systems that actually the UN teaches the countries how to behave internationally. All right. Okay. So this is something which is quite interesting when we talk about moral reasoning, and also it's adaptive. That it is adaptive to new methodologies and technologies, can offer practical solution, may cushion or neutralize organized faith. And the reason here is sometimes people become agitated when we talk about using moral sets of another religion. You know, if you're a minority and you feel that there is a majority people of a different faith are oppressing you, then therefore anything good comes out of that faith system, you are going to resist. Okay, so therefore, to be neutral, you don't call it a religious sects, right? You call it a bioethical sects, all right? You call it, because they came with a different tradition, all right? Different philosophical knowledge system. This is something which we used in my paper. This is what we call the existing value-based education leading to social negativity. Right now, we have the civic or moral education. We also have religious ethics. Like in Malaysia, we have the civic education, which is given, within the school curricula for those who are non-Muslims. And of course, the Muslims, they have their own religious curriculum as well. Okay. Then the existing value-based education at this point of time is too materialistic, I would argue, and countries may change. Malaysia is trying to change into a new system, but I see there's a lot of resistance, not only from the educators, but also from the parents. The parents cannot understand why they need to, change the system, because it's too exam-oriented. The parents, some or other, similarly, in India, they start tuition very early in Malaysia, all right? There's a high level of competition, all right, to get good grades in Malaysia. So when the government, the education system wanted to change this concept to look at what do you call that, personality building, to look at value building, especially among younger children, there is a lot of resistance. Like, for example, if you look at Korea, like, for example, the first few years of the education is about self. It's about how to take care of self, how to not to be obese, like, for example, how to eat good food, how to groom yourself. All right. So from small, they're actually teaching you about how you need to take care of this body. All right. So different ideologies have approaches have come. And also the existing belief system in Malaysia, or in this case, it's a Malaysian case, or it's also applicable elsewhere when you have multiple religion living, coexisting together, is you have religion comes into a school curricula and prescribes and gives prescriptive solution to moral problems, and that becomes problematic. And that leads to some level of social negativity, people resisting the system and things like that. So, all right, now what we are looking at this. This is a new value-based educational, cultivating social positivity. We look at enhanced civic education. The enhanced civic education basically is value-based education, and we also put in the bioethics principle. And we hope that the new value-based education standards will come about, which now that people will look at the new belief system, all right, and go towards social positivity. And this is my last slide. I just like to explain this a bit. Basically, when we talk about this, let me see, let me move this. Okay. We have combined this, the bioethics principle, the principle of autonomy, non-maleficence, beneficence, and justice. And these are the value-based, what do you call that, education, the values in the VBE, which is the value-based. We talk about respect, courage, optimism, cooperation, action, transformation. This comes under autonomy. So what happens when this plus this, you get these are the value enhancement that you can materialize with this. The ability to show respect to others and express opinion, like, for example. Courage to move out from comfort zone and express opinion. Believe that problems can be managed and solved. There is always a silver line, for all the problems. Believe in team efforts, group dynamics, to solve complex problems. Trusting others. This is confidence building, all right, with responsibility. Take action based on sound moral reasoning, all right. Continuous learning, all right, bringing progressive change for the betterment of others. These are the concept. Then non-maleficent is basically not to do harm, all right. Do no harm, honesty, and tolerance. Internalizing the principle of do no harm. All right. This is very important. We may disagree with the other person, but we must refrain ourselves to not to do create anything that will further exacerbate right the situation. This is very important. All right. When we talk about moral teaching, what stops a person from carrying a weapon or from punching the other guy because he doesn't agree with the other guy's saying? All right. So I think these are internal moral characters that we need to inculcate through education. I agree with the theme of the conference, and also with Swamiji's propagation over the years. He has also spoken in my university as well. Is the whole idea is actually, how do you reconcile peace? How do you bring a person, to with differing views, individual with differing views to a table and talk to each other and go back as friends, okay, and accept the fact that there will be a lot of things that you may not, or rather the group may not agree, all right, and that is okay, all right. Embrace disagreement, all right, as part of life. Then, of course, we have this beneficent. Beneficent looks at what benefits the others, you and also the others and other sentient beings. People focus, values, diversity, responsibility, compassion, friendship, understanding. These are all benefits, all right? Cares for the others that who serves, being thoughtful, respectful, the needs of others, ability to recognize and embrace differences among individuals, celebrate diversity, and this is very important. Celebration of diversity, all right? As a valuable strengthening asset of society. Acting responsibly and avoid undesirable action and behavior, ability to feel concern for the suffering and misfortune of others, ability to show mutual affection between people, okay, able to be sympathetic, towards the feeling of others, all right, and also the principle of justice, of fairness, equality, and inclusion, right? Being fair and respectful in dealing with others, making all persons feel appreciated, and so on. Isolate and exclude unfair prejudices, stereotypes, and obstacles toward others. Okay, this is my last slide. So thank you very much. Oh, there is a conclusion here. Sorry. One more slide. All right. So what is the conclusion here? The study has argued that the value sets in the value-based education and bioethics should be incorporated into current curricula to produce good, inclusive, and ethical individuals. So the authors, myself and my co-writers in this paper, are also conscious the fact that the education or schooling system alone is not a singular remedy of conflict. It is a host of systems and methodologies that need to come into play. But having said that, we have to start at the basic level, and which is the schooling system. All right. Bioethical value-based model, or this triangulation, all right, between these three elements, all right, and the integration of these value sets of the value-based education and the bioethics principle may help to promote deeper inculcation of values among learners. Thank you so much for listening.